Welcome to the explanation of TREC's Notice of Buyer's Termination of Contract. I'm Ann LaCusta and I'm your broker, and this is a new version of the Buyer's Termination of Contract. It is mandatory to use this new version as of March 1st, 2019. Mandatory to use the new version as of March 1st, 2019. All right, we're going to talk it through, and this goes along with the new appraisal addendum and the new third-party finance addendum. So if you have not watched those videos, you might want to watch those as well. All right, street address obviously must be the property address and match the contract between the undersigned buyer and whoever the seller is of the buyer and seller. All right, let's look at the different ways you have to terminate. This does not address release of earnest money. It does not have anything to do with release of earnest money. This is just terminating the contract. So all parties, the buyer is notifying all parties that they're not going to buy the house, and this is why. Release of earnest money is still on a different form and requires agreement of all parties. These are buyer rights to terminate and does not require seller's signature. Right, number one is the unrestricted right to terminate under the option period, which is paragraph 23 of the contract. That's the option period. During that option period time, you have the right to terminate for any reason. All right, number two is buyer cannot obtain buyer approval. So there's a third-party finance addendum attached to the contract. You put in a number of days for the buyer to be approved, and the buyer did not get approved. So the buyer's credit, their income, their debt, something about the actual buyer was not approved, and you are still within the days you put on the third-party finance addendum. If it's after those days have passed, you cannot use this box, right? It is only within the days that are allowed on the third-party finance addendum the way you filled it out, right? Box 3 is property approval. So property approval is the second part on the third-party finance addendum. Remember, the actual house has to be approved. If the house is not approved, the buyer sends this buyer notice and a seller, the lender's written explanation of why the house is not approved. So the house is not approved because it can't get homeowner's insurance because the roof's a mess, or the house is not approved because it doesn't appraise, or the house is not approved because there were some big repairs that the lender required. Whatever it is, box 3, and this needs to be done in order for the earnest money to be refunded to buyer. Remember, the new third party says you must deliver this notice 3 days before closing, at least 3 days before closing. You can deliver it later than that, up closer to closing than that, but you may not get the earnest money back. All right, box 3 is about the property. Box 4 is about the Homeowners Association addendum, and this is where the buyer has received the HOA docs and has the 3 days. There's something they don't like that they found in the HOA docs. They have the right to terminate. Box 4. Box 5 is the seller's disclosure notice. So B2 is when they did not have the seller's disclosure notice when they wrote the contract. They received the seller's disclosure notice afterwards, after they're under contract, and they have 7 days from the time they receive the addendum, the disclosure notice. 7 days. Within 7 days of receiving that notice, they can still terminate. That's what this box is for. And then box 6 is to terminate using the lender appraisal addendum. And box 7 is on the contract, paragraph 6D. It's objections that were uncovered during the title search, and they have up to 15 days to cure those, and if they haven't, then the buyer can terminate. And then any other reasons would be written in box 8. So again, this has nothing to do with release of earnest money. These are just the buyer rights to terminate, and so they send this notice to seller to let them know they are terminating the contract with no intention of buying the home.